Abstract Expressionism was the first genuinely American art movement to emerge after World War II. Before this point, all American art had been modeled after what was happening in the various European centers. If an American artist wanted to be taken seriously, he needed to travel across the ocean and study the styles and trends of his European contemporaries. The abstract expressionists were primarily centered in New York City. This is why they are commonly referred to as being the New York School. The abstract expressionists were greatly influenced by the European expressionist painters. The paintings of Der Blaue Reiter founder Wassily Kandinsky were especially influential to these young artists. They identified with Kandinsky's interest in non-objective art making. Like the Surrealists, the abstract expressionists were also influenced by the study of psychology and psychoanalysis. Many of these artists believe that if they preconceive images, they will end up filtering and censoring their ideas before the ideas are expressed on the canvas. Like Joan Miró, these artists believed that by removing recognizable subject matter, they could produce work that better translates the driving impulses of their subconscious minds. Jackson Pollock is one of the most influential figures from this abstract expressionist time period. Pollock was taught in the 1930s by the popular Midwestern mural painter Thomas Hart Benton. Pollock admired the way that Benton created a sense of rhythm through the dynamic moving elements in his compositions. An early work like this by Pollock, entitled Going West, displays a mixed influence from Benton's scenes of Americana and the abstract style of European expressionists like André Derain or Edvard Munch. Pollock's move toward non-representation was, in part, a response to the aftermath of the war. The abstract expressionists came to terms with the crisis of the Second World War by separating their work from pre-war American art. One way to do this was to avoid the depiction of historical or social subject matter that had so greatly defined the works of pre-war Depression-era artists like Thomas Hart Benton. Pollock's major breakthrough came with how he handled the paint. As these photographs by Hans Nemuth illustrate, the artist never let his brush touch the surface of the painting. By reducing the physical contact, he allowed the paint to display its truest material nature. The paint is a viscous, oily substance that can be dripped, splashed, and splattered onto the support of the canvas. Because the canvas was laid on the ground instead of on an easel, Pollock was able to physically enter the space of the painting. The resulting object literally documents the interaction of the artist with the canvas. Like the forensic evidence at a crime scene, the countless dripped layers of paint tell the story of the sort of dance that Pollock performed on and around the canvas. Each splash of paint is a measure of the artist's trajectory and force of application. Because of his energetic engagement with the canvas, Pollock was a type of abstract expressionist known as an action painter. The paintings document his literal attack on the surface of the canvas. Beyond the way that he applied the paint, another of Pollock's major breakthroughs was the way that this application acknowledged the ultimate flatness of the picture plane. Even in his most non-objective paintings, Kandinsky still created certain illusions such as implied volume and depth. By painting in this all-over style, Pollock eliminates the last vestiges of illusion. All things on the surface are equal. The paint does not represent anything beyond the material qualities of paint and how the artist applies it to the canvas. This painting is in no way a window into another world. For the first time in history, you have a painting that truly acknowledges its status as an object. The canvas is a three-dimensional rectangle with paint that has been stacked up in real three-dimensional space. This cover of a 1962 issue of the Saturday Evening Post by the American illustrator Norman Rockwell does a wonderful job to convey the public reception of Pollock's work. Like the stoic figure of Rockwell's connoisseur, many people did not know how to react to Pollock's paintings. Pollock's work angered many people at this time as well. They viewed his paintings like the story of the emperor's new clothes. No matter how eloquently critics were able to discuss modernist theory or historical precedents, these paintings still looked like a mess on the kitchen floor. The writer of a Time magazine interview went as far as to give Pollock the unflattering nickname of Jack the Dripper. When asked by the same journalist what his paintings meant, Pollock replied that his work was, quote, like a bed of flowers. You don't need to tear your hair out trying to figure out what it means. Similar to the maxim of the realists, what you see is what you get.